home story began years ago. We started updates here long before there was a plan for cameras. Just a family restoring a place that meant something. A few years later, the house has weathered time and new challenges, including one we didn't expect, the foundation. So now we're back, not starting over, but continuing the journey with more intention, more heart, and a renewed vision. Welcome to the Roberts Project. This is my grandparents' home, and it sits on a few acres. So the land that's cleared and the land that's behind it, which is wooded, belonged to us for the last 60 years. And so my grandmother passed away 2 summers ago, and I'm here to hopefully finish out this project. It's a big one. It's a huge project. Today we found out some things that I'll share with you as we get deeper into this video. But one of the projects that we started with is to put some beautification at the curb. And so my son planted these, I believe it's 13 trees here. And we did get 2 of them to brown on us, 2 to 3 of them to brown on us, and he found some sort of solution that will hopefully save them. It's very wet here. My grandmother used to say she has a lake in front of her house, and so the survival of the trees was sort of in question, and we just wanted them to grow tall and eventually provide some privacy. They are evergreens. There is water running along the whole side of the house. So one of the problems is that this is low land, and yes, it gets very soppy out here. So it's difficult to maintain, especially close to the curb here. But we are going to do our best, and we did at least give it some curb appeal this summer. And so, we need to work on that one plant here that didn't make it. And so we'll continue to brush this up. We kind of lost our steam when it came to beautifying, but it's easy to spend a day out here and finish putting down the mulch, and then at this point put fall foliage out. We had plans to put the lamppost a little closer. I wanted it actually up here, but we're not sure that the ground with that water would support. So we'll see if it needs to stay there or move. But that explains the box that was in my car in my last video. Years ago, these line of trees that you see in the distance were planted, and you can see they offer privacy for as soon as you cut the curb. And we just wanted to extend that level of privacy without closing it completely off. So he was smart enough to bring this row of trees a little closer up, which I love the idea. The lawn people are due to come. The grass grows extremely fast, and so they will be here in a few days. And so this will look different the next time you guys see it. But for now, just wanted to give you a glimpse of the beauty here. It's a rambler, and the backstory is that the property was built in 2 phases. So the first phase was built originally 60 years ago, but the second phase, which is the second half of the house where the chimney is, was built 40 years ago. Yes. And I actually went and helped my grandfather pick out the cinder block and brick and make other decisions that he needed to make for the extension that he wanted to put on his home. But he did both jobs with the help of other people. So, there's some things that we want to do to make sure that it gets updated, of course. But for now, we have bigger fish to fry, and I'll show you that shortly here. But back in the left corner there, you see there is room for a 2-car garage, although it is mainly used for storage. And I'm not sure what year that was built. I'd have to do some research on that. It's not 60 years old, though. You can see that by the building. I think it was built when the extension was put on the house, like I said, but it is probably 40 years old. We are hauling some things to the dump that we want to get rid of, and that we're just kind of doing that in phases. But my grandfather spent every day after work and every day during the weekend, all his waking hours out here until it was time to come in. And he had this property looking pristine at all times. He would cut this on his own. Now, we hire a landscaper right now. We've got a landscaping company that does this. But he would cut this grass over several days himself on his John Deere. And that is no small feat because, of course, it took him days to do it alone with a small tractor. So we have several men coming when they come every 2 weeks to tackle this, and they get done in a couple of hours. So, but this used to always be very manicured with flowers and shrubbery because that was my grandmother's projects. Going around the whole house, she would have beautiful, beautiful gardens, and crops were planted pretty much as far as you can see. So I grew up with vegetables of all kinds: corn, cabbage, pumpkins, watermelons, string beans, and it was always too much for the two of them. This was a place where many came for entertainment over the years, and we would have big 4th of July parties and always a celebration happening. And randomly on a weekend, you might have a family member. My grandmother has a large family. They would stop by and pay a visit. They would always leave with a big bag of fresh produce that my grandparents and mainly my grandfather grew. My grandmother had her special veggies that she would grow, and she kept them close to the house. But, you know, you would always see the both of them out here picking the vegetation and, you know, at harvest time. And she would take them in the house and blanch what she needed to, freeze things, can things, you name it. But there's so much history, as you can only imagine. You know, this is a place where deer come through these woods all the time during their season, and they come up close. This is a legacy property that at some point I would own and pass it down to my own 2 children. My son is here now, and he sectioned this area off because he wanted to start growing some vegetation, and he just really didn't stick to it. So we've got to make a decision on what happens with the fencing at some point. But yeah, we are, you know, really looking at a lot of history here. And so again, here's some things that we are getting out of here. These are some old bookshelves that have to go. And then this fire pit here has been, it was originally put here to be a grill. And so, you know, I'm calling it a fire pit. It's a grill. And if we don't use it, we could, but we don't use it. So we'll have to decide if we clean it up. And, you know, obviously it's separated here. So it would have to be refurbished in every way. But we used to cook crabs forever outside. And, you know, we had picnic tables out here for people to enjoy. My horses were here. They didn't stay long because I am extraordinarily allergic to them, and it's how we found out because I ended up almost headed to the emergency room when on my first ride on my pony. So I'm saying horses, they were ponies. So I had 2 Shetland ponies. I also had a goat. There used to be a big tree pretty much where you see the fenced area, where the bush is in the fenced area. That was actually there were 2 trees, I think, apple tree. And I had a goat for a short amount of time. There's a funny story around that, but one day the goat was completely gone, and I don't know if this is true, and I may never know. I don't know if my mother even knows the answer to this, but we were looking for my goat. I named my goat Bo after Bo Derek, and one day the goat was gone. And so my grandmother she called back to the owner, and the owner told her that the goat made its way back home. Now, that is easily 5 miles from here. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Grandma got tired of the goat, and that's the story she decided to make up. I don't know. But it'll be fun to really ask my mother after all of this time, was that actually true? The owner did tell my grandmother that the goat was up on the roof of the house. So we decided not to keep the goat. And then over there, as far as you can see, used to be an entire chicken coop. My grandmother and grandfather had a huge chicken coop, and we had ducks in it as well at some point. There was a pond, but I would go out often in the morning and get eggs that the chickens and the ducks laid. So again, just so much history. I mean, I can remember being 4 years old and my kiddie pool was right here. This is the beautiful property that we are restoring and plan to keep as a legacy property in our family. So some of the most beautiful trees. This is a birch. It is just huge and beautiful. And some trees have had to come down. Like, for instance, when I was growing up, we had a weeping willow tree in the front, and it probably was there well into my adulthood. But at some point, it got too big and caused too much trouble, so it had to be removed. But it was one of my favorite feature of the front yard. That weeping willow was so beautiful. But I do love this Japanese tree here. And there's actually two of these. I think it's in the front. We may have passed it. In the summer, the bushes are in full bloom, the hydrangea bushes, and those were some of my grandmother's favorite. We need to clear out lots that's in the garage that we've been holding on to, not sure quite what to do with it. But we've started. I've donated a ton, and we continue to just purge old furniture. I have some things listed on Facebook Marketplace, but super peaceful, nature at its finest. There are so many nature stories. Keeping this episode outside focused so you can feel the scale before we actually step inside. So here's the current state of the property, and this is our beautiful canvas. This is the area where we actually discovered the foundation issues. There are numerous cracks, and these cracks are just climbing up the house. That's episode 1 of the Roberts Project. Next, we're stepping inside, starting with the bathroom, and I'll share the plan to stabilize the foundation before the bigger updates. Subscribe to follow along as we bring this aging home back to something beautiful, one space at a time.